purity rings, purity pledges. Like, it was talked about so much, saving yourself from marriage and,
Yep.
you know, hailing that as being the ultimate sin.
Yeah.
And like, you can't go back from it.
Hello,
Welcome
or welcome back,
to the Womanly Podcast,
where we embrace womanhood in its entirety.
From the hard and awkward conversations
to the silly and embarrassing moments.
An effort to reclaim and redefine what it means to be womanly in this crazy, wacky world. I'm Delana, the neutral one.
I'm Katie, the morbid one.
And I'm Madeline, the other one. And we're so excited that you've joined us today because there's room for you at our table.
So, grab your favorite drink and let's have a conversation.
Smorgasbord.
I am double fisting it today. I've got a Topo Chico because, fun fact, I have a completely new diet, guys.
Yeah, that's very fun fact.
Oh my gosh, it's been such a wild ride. I saw a holistic doctor. It was the most wild experience of my life. Now I'm on a very particular diet to help me heal my gut, and I can't have any sugar right now, and I'm like feeling the crash. I am like craving it so bad right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that I think, I should quit drinking or quit having sugar, and then I think about it a little bit more than just that singular thought, and I'm like, never mind.
You like think about what it would actually
okay, maybe
be like.
I'll do less sugar.
Yeah.
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 It's a lot of work.
I'm drinking a chai as per usual.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a Coke.
Oh, and my other drink is coffee.
Oh, that's right.
With no sugar in it. All right, checking question. What are you guys grateful for right now?
Oh, that's nice.
Isn't that nice?
What a nice question.
Ain't nothing.
No, that's not true. I don't know, there's things. But what are they?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm struggling a little bit right now. Been like dealing with a lot of depression because I realized Sam, actually, that's what I'm thankful for. Is I'm thankful for my husband who like knows me better than I know myself sometimes, because I was like crying last night because I was so overwhelmed by all these changes and just like scared, and I realized because of him, like I was like, I don't know why I'm so emotional about this. And like, I know that the obvious thing is food is an emotional thing. Like, that's obvious. But it was like way deeper than that. And I was like, I don't know why this is like so emotional for me. And he was like, Delana, your literal worst fear because of how you're built. He's like, you are a workaholic and you like to like take everything on. And but basically it's like this is like a personal hell for you in a way. Oh, because I also have I have like past eating disorders that have made me build like a really weird relationship and
with
emotional food. Like I have these emotional, not just with food tastes and stuff like that, but like with rituals around food and that are like I didn't realize were so deep seated in me.
Yeah.
And so he was like, this is like a personal hell for you because you've found comforts in food now as you've changed your relationship. And that was like a battle for you. And now all of that is changing. All those comforts are going away. And you like to be in control of the situation and you're not. I can't even cook for myself. I'm ordering foods because it's such an overwhelming diet. So that's what I'm grateful for is my husband who helps me connect dots sometimes, because that actually helped me like be able to process some of it.
I guess I'm grateful for, I read this book. It took me a little while longer to get through it than I kind of expected it would, but this year's just been nuts. So, I read a book. It's called Between Two Kingdoms, and don't ask me who wrote it because I will not be able to pronounce her name correctly. Whenever this episode goes live, I'll post it on like our Instagram or something. But it's about a woman. Her first name is Suleika, and her last name, I'm not going to even try. But she wrote this book after she was diagnosed with cancer early in her 20s. And it's her whole kind of reckoning with that diagnosis, and it took 3 or 4 years of her life, and then she goes on this road trip and stuff after the fact, and it's very raw and vulnerable. In the midst of her kind of talking about coming to a reckoning with having been, through the illness and what it took from her, she lives kind of in this state. She lives in a prolonged state of self-preservation and of survival. And that's something that like she'd never lived in before. It was something that having the illness trained her to do. And at the, I don't really want to say the end of it because it's cancer. We know how cancer goes, but as she's kind of reckoning with everything, she discusses how she's still, even when she's been cleared, quote unquote cleared, how she still finds herself living in that self-preservation mode and in that survival mode, and how difficult it is to get herself out of it. While I have never personally dealt with illness like that, like a fatal illness or anything terminal or anything quite along that vein, all my life I have lived in a self-preservation mode, and I've lived in a survival mode.
Yep.
And it was because that was what my parents knew to do. That was what my family knew to do. My parents were raised in that mindset because that's what their parents knew to do. They didn't know anything else other than that. And I'm realizing now, especially after having read that book, that I don't have to live that way anymore. That I don't have to live in that mindset anymore, that just because that's what my family has always known. And there's traumas and stuff that go into that too. I mean, some that I would say are pretty severe. Like if you really contend with it the appropriate way, they're pretty severe. But they're not things that you have to hold on to. And they're not things that you have to have shape your life the way that myself and my family and generations of my family have allowed these things to shape our lives. And it was just really kind of eye-opening to read that book and hear her thoughts on it, obviously in a different environment and a different circumstance and all of that. But it was really eye-opening for me to read that in her story and recognize that like some of the thoughts that she was having were things that I am currently at this point in my life contending with. So really grateful for that.
Today, I'm grateful for I'm grateful for Bryce and my family. Last night, we were over there for Sunday dinner as per usual. We do that every Sunday night. And on the way home, I just started crying. I was crying all the way home because recently Bryce and I have realized that living in the city is not going to be for us. Not right now. So we're looking at houses an hour and a half away. And I just started crying, like thinking like, I don't want to have to sacrifice that time with my family, with his family, like just growing pains. And I was like, we're going from one big sacrifice, which was sacrificing our privacy, mostly by moving in with my in-laws, to another one, which is having to move far away just to get into the house market. And so, I'm just thankful for family and thankful for my relationship with them and thankful that I can cry over that. And it's something that is so important to me.
And miss it before it's gone.
Yeah.
Not really gone, but it's a blessing.
So, but, he just reassured me, like, that it's going to be okay. And, like, we have to think about our family now. Me and Bryce. And thinking about expanding our lives outward, physically and emotionally in every way. We have to expand. And so, in order to do that, it's going to be, geographically as well. And so, I'm just thankful for Bryce and my family. Yeah, just family in general. The family I have with Bryce. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we all have like such deep but like exciting things
Yeah.
to talk about.
Should we talk about like something a little bit lighter? About like we need a little bit of light. Like I'm grateful for my dogs.
I'm grateful for my little Zen garden. I'm grateful for this little Zen garden right now.
I'm grateful for Animal Crossing.
Oh, Animal Crossing's good. I think we need to like go see each other's islands.
I thank you
Mine's
for
under
saying that.
construction right now.
Is it?
I am so freaking grateful for Breath of the Wild,
Oh my
which I
yes.
beat.
Oh yeah.
I have been playing it endlessly for the past week because like literally Sam has come to me and he'd be like, Delana, you really gotta stop, because I was just letting myself, because I was in such a hard emotional state and I just like
It's
needed
an easy thing to run away to.
I needed to just be in a fantasy world, you know. Finally beat it, but now I'm going back and I'm playing all the side quests and stuff like that.
I got distracted by all the side quests and I have not picked it up again.
Have you played it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just such a magical game.
I know. That's okay. Well, we're like so off on a tangent.
I know we are totally.
Any of our listeners who are super into Breath of the Wild or Animal Crossing will really enjoy that. So.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what we're talking about in this episode is not quite as fun.
Yeah. So the title of this is obviously about Girl Defined, and the reason that we use their name is because a lot of people know about them. It's not because this episode is going to be about bashing Girl Defined or anything like that. That's not our spirits, you know. But we just felt like they were like basically a well-known example of a mentality that we grew up in. And so we're just using them as like a parallel to our own lives since so many people know about them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And if you like you're listening to this and this is so foreign to you and you have absolutely no idea what growing up in this kind of community is like, then you can, I mean, I don't know, go watch a Girl Defined video because it is a good visual of the attitude and the expectation with which we were raised.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that.
So we wanted to kind of share how that impacted us and what we think now, and if we've carried any of those beliefs forward, or if
whether we wanted to or not.
That's a great point. Yeah, whether we wanted to or not, and or what we've changed about our perspective on all of those things and why. And yeah, so that's our conversation today.
Yeah, so this was a difficult one for us to kind of like figure out how to structure, right?
Yeah.
So
could go so many places.
So many ways. So basically what we did is we kind of took like we said, we're not doing this as a dogging on Girl Defined thing, but we did go through kind of what their main things are that they really hit on, because the things that they really hit on are the same things that we were hit over the head with over and over again.
Like
so
what are the big beliefs that are in that system, basically?
So obviously they call themselves Girl Defined. The whole idea is that they use biblical truth ish to try to teach about what a Christian girl or a Christian womanly woman looks like using lessons from the Bible, quotes, air quotes.
This is so, I just realized how cool it is that we're talking about this on
Womanly?
podcast called Womanly.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Okay, it feels like a fit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of their whole tenet, is that they want to like teach girls how to live a righteous Christian lifestyle based on what they
their
glean,
definition,
they glean as being really important doctrine from the Bible. So I think some of the biggest things that they talk about kind of like, oh, if you're boy crazy or you're just desperate to date, what does that look like as a Christian girl? Or they really hit on a lot of topics about sex, and they are big proponents of radical purity culture.
Yep.
They talk a lot about modesty.
Yeah.
Lots of things to say about that, which I know you will too.
Yeah.
And then obviously they talk about things like a woman's role in the church, marriage, society, etc. What makes a righteous Christian woman. And then they put out a lot of videos that are kind of like their own, what they believe to be the right Christian response to social issues. And then obviously they talk about how like feelings can be bad and deceitful and that they only lead to destruction. They can't be trusted. So
Yeah, it's so wild to me that I like look back on that and I'm like all the things that they say, I'm like, I thought that way. Like I genuinely, because that's what I was taught, you know,
Mhm.
like I genuinely thought that way. And yeah, it's so crazy to me. That's why I don't like cancel culture, because I'm like, you can be a completely different person 5 years later, you know?
yeah, and that's
So,
one thing I want to say to their benefit is that there are some things where like their beliefs on modesty. I'm not sure that they really like exactly get into the meat of how their thoughts have changed, but they have put out videos later on where they
Mhm.
say, you know, we do acknowledge that our views on this have changed. Have they
That's
changed a
cool.
lot? Not really, but they do admit that their thoughts have changed and they have
Mhm.
gone back and deleted videos that no longer align. So
Mhm.
Growing
they're
is important.
yeah, they're capable of that, which is nice to know. But
Yeah.
I do want to put that out there on their benefit.
Yeah.
But whenever y'all were growing up, like youth groups or church or whatever, I feel like girls were just characterized as being super boy crazy.
Yeah. Which I never was,
Me
by the
either.
way.
Not
I
at all.
was.
You
You
were?
Naughty, naughty.
Yeah. I
That
had
is not
feelings.
godly.
I had feelings
Mm.
for lots of boys.
Mhm.
My first big crush for some reason was Ben Affleck.
Really?
Yes, and I
That's
saw
so
him in
great.
Daredevil, and I was like, when did that come out? I was probably like 12 at the
Forever
time
ago,
or
yeah.
something, you know, and I was like star-eyed for him, and now I'm like, he's not that attractive.
Especially these days.
One of
Yeah,
the
these
main
days. Yeah,
You're
but
like,
even I
oh,
went back and I looked at
even
him
then.
back in that movie when I had such, and I was like, what? Did you ever were you also like boy band crazy and stuff like that?
Jonas Brothers.
Jonas Brothers.
Okay.
Like big Jonas Brother fan.
Mm-hmm.
But like who wasn't? One of the main reasons I was so googly hard eyes over them was because they wore purity rings. And I thought that was
yeah.
so
I forgot about that.
I thought that was so like
Radical.
Did you guys ever
Yeah.
listen to Barlow Girl?
Yeah, oh yeah.
no.
Also a they all wore purity rings as well. Which now I look back on that and I'm like, honestly, what a dumb concept. Like literally you're walking around and everybody thinks that you're engaged or married.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
wore a
like,
purity ring.
I wore a
why
purity
can't I
ring.
why can't I find my
I
spouse?
wore- yeah.
Everybody thinks
How
you're engaged or
weird.
married, dude.
Except you're like 13 when you make these pledges and like,
I
you
know. It's so sad.
I personally, and I mean, well, we can talk about this at another point if we want to, but like I personally asked for mine. I was not like, mine wasn't a true love weights or anything. It was actually this really pretty wraparound ring that said, I will remain faithful and true. And I asked for that ring specifically because I thought it was so beautiful and I thought the sentiment was really nice too. And to me, it wasn't so much like, oh, I'll be super pure, blah, blah, blah. It was more like, I have certain intentions and goals and wants for myself. And I know that they align with what God would want for me as well. And I'm going to try to be faithful and true to that.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like, I know a lot of people with the whole true love weights thing and like making a purity pledge
Yeah.
because your parents told you to or your pastor told you to.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole thing with that, but I don't feel those negative thoughts toward mine. And then it eventually broke. I wore it for probably 6-7 years and it eventually just snapped in half.
Break with it.
No. I just like never replaced it
I just
because
had to.
yeah, I know it's funny. No, I just never replaced it, and it was just one of those things that like I don't know. I got to a point where I was like, I don't have to have a ring to feel like I can do this, you know.
Mhm.
I remember thinking it was so like risky when my crush would like take my purity ring off and like twirl it around and play with it.
Oh.
I had a
At
guy.
youth group or whatever,
Yeah.
or even at co-op.
I had a guy do that once, and I didn't think it was risky. I was just like, oh, that's nice.
To me, that feels invasive. I don't know why.
I don't remember him taking it off. I think he like let me wear his watch, and the only thing I had, because I'm not a jewelry person, was my ring. So
Yeah.
I was like, I guess you can play with this. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
like the only fair exchange I had.
Oh my god. Ooh,
So
he
edgy.
likes me. He wants to twirl my purity ring around.
Sounds like a sexual innuendo.
Put it in his mouth and twirl it around with his tongue.
Oh my god. I don't feel like I'm like prepared for that level of this conversation.
Oh my god.
I'm done. I just had
Lord
to
help
add that
us.
because I thought it was so funny, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, so and they talked a lot about dating stuff too. So obviously it's like girls by the time they're like 12 or 13, they're super boy crazy, and that's bad. And
Well-
dating, there's a lot to conversations. I feel like so much of it was pointed toward like it was all about the girls in youth group and stuff about
Mhm.
dating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Because I feel like the boy crazy and the dating kind of like
They went hand in hand.
hand in hand for
Yeah.
sure. One thing that I don't like it, but like I
Stand by it or not stand by it?
I recognize
Okay.
is that in the purity culture, it was like equal for boys and girls, other than whenever you start getting into the conversation of modesty. But
Mhm.
like both were expected to,
Yeah.
Wait.
Uphold.
you know what I'm saying, and uphold that. No?
I don't know. It just I don't think that you can look at that separate from modesty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
think
that's true.
because modesty was such a heavy thing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the expectation of that was like you as a girl are doing this to prevent the man from or the boy from
Yeah.
making a mistake or from lusting or whatever.
That's true. It
you
was
can't separate the two,
Yeah,
really. If you could, then yes, it's equal, but I don't
Yeah.
feel like you can really separate
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, because so much of it was, you're right. Like so much of it was
the responsibility, so much of it was on the girl.
on the girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And
at
it was
such
like
an
our
early
job
age.
to uphold our purity and their purity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm
if it's like
responsible for us both.
Mhm.
I've got to
Yeah.
dress
Because you can't control
modestly,
yourself.
yeah, because you can't control your mind.
Yeah.
Like, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and no one made us believe that. I don't
know.
think.
I don't
Yeah.
know. The hard thing for me, especially with all of it, is that I like to talk about this because it's such a like informative thing about my experience with a lot of things, but I aged this sounds so weird. I aged really quickly. So like I looked like a woman by the time I was 11. Like I've been this basically the same height. I had boobs. I like had curves. I was whenever I'm thinner, I'm very angular in my features and stuff. So I looked much older than I actually was. And so whenever I was 11, the first guy who ever gave me his number was 18. And then
Dang.
whenever I was 14, a 21-year-old gave me it. So like I look so advanced,
Yeah.
and I really struggle with a lot of like the idea of modesty and dating and like I was not boy crazy. I had absolutely no desire for
Mhm.
anybody to notice me.
Mm.
I
I
was
can't say I
not-
didn't have any desire.
I mean, I
was
did
there.
for a couple of
Yeah.
people later on,
Yeah.
like whenever I was a teenager, but it was like the guys that I wanted them to notice me for different reasons, right?
Mm.
So, and I'm still kind of that person. Like every once in a while, I'm like, I really do. Maybe I do want to like really dress to the nines, and you know,
Yeah.
but otherwise, I want to be noticed for my intellect and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I very, very early on in my life was attracting men who were significantly older than me.
Mhm.
They didn't know
Yeah.
that I was 11
Yeah.
and 14.
Yeah.
But it was an issue because I was 11 and 14.
Mhm.
And I don't know that there was much that an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old are capable of doing whenever you look like a woman
Mhm.
at those ages to prevent the male gaze,
Yeah.
especially whenever they're that much older.
Yeah.
It's the natural response.
Yeah.
If someone's attractive, you're gonna find them attractive.
Mhm.
It's not
Right.
anything. It's not anything to be ashamed of. I mean,
Yeah.
there comes a point where like it'll be inappropriate if you know go
If
there
you're
in your
11 and
mind,
he's 18.
or like in marriage. Like I don't look at guys and be like, oh, he's hot. Like
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
like my mind just doesn't go there. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's just like a big old sin not to look at people and find them attractive when that's
Yeah.
literally okay and that's literally
We
natural.
were
I
naturally made that way.
know.
Well, God made us that way.
Yeah, and that's where I think the purity cultures start to become so damaging, and then it starts like pulling in all these other things, like am I even allowed to have feelings, you
Yeah.
know, like all this stuff. But there's totally a difference between what I think is like totally fine and even pure in as funny as that is,
Yeah.
where
all relative, right?
Yeah, right. Where if you just find somebody attractive, cool, like that's
Yeah.
great. You should
Yeah.
find other people attractive.
Right.
But if you are gawking over them, you know, where
Obsessing,
it's gross,
Mhm.
that is where I think it becomes
Yeah.
sinful, you
Mhm.
know, where it's gross and it's wrong.
Yeah.
And where now men are actually, funny enough, becoming girl crazy, and not only just girl crazy, but like what girls' bodies crazy.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's where if we need to control our boy crazy, they need to control all that. That's
Mhm.
not on us.
Well, that's what I was
No.
getting to, is that whenever I first started experiencing that, I was 11 and
Mhm.
they were like 18-year-old men. How is an 11-year-old
Yeah.
supposed to
Navigate.
do anything to prevent
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
18-year-old man from having those thoughts? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think I was doing anything
Mhm.
wrong. I mean, I was 11. Like, I think I wore t-shirts and basketball shorts at that age and like
Yeah.
12 Livestrong bracelets on both arms. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so I don't know. It's just and that's just my personal experience, that it started so young for me. And for me, it was more of like an idea of safety. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't so much like, oh, you gotta like prevent your brother in Christ from stumbling or anything like that. No, this is you have grown men who are looking at you.
Mhm.
You are in a Walmart and you have a 40-year-old man smiling at you grossly in a
Yeah.
Walmart. Like
Yeah.
Protection.
it was a safety thing for me. Like,
Yeah.
I learned early on that like to prevent dangerous situations from occurring,
Mhm.
that you didn't draw attention to yourself.
Mm.
However, when you're somebody like me who has boobs and a butt, there's not a whole lot
Yeah.
you can do
Right.
to cover it up. Like, you just
Yeah.
can't. And you can be wearing a burlap sack, and if a guy has a penchant for
Mhm.
being gross,
Yeah.
they're going to be gross about
They're
you in
gonna
a
be
burlap
gross.
sack.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I
Mhm.
remember being told by someone to pray the feelings away.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Like what kind of feelings?
Just
Like romantic feelings. Like those are not of God. Like you need to
What?
pray those away. Like
Gosh.
you're way too young
Have
to
they
like
read the Bible?
praying those like feelings away, those natural God given feelings. It's like
Yeah.
you need to pray those away because like and God will take them away from you. Like it's okay. Like
Jeez.
just
Unless he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
so. I mean, and it was like specific. Like pray that your mind wouldn't go into like sinful places or whatever.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of that card in Cards Against Humanity where it's to pray the gay away.
Oh That's exactly what I was thinking too. It's like, I mean, it's the same thing as like
So
pray the
dumb.
depression away, or pray,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, pray your injury away, pray the cancer away. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, like, I mean, yes, pray.
Pray-
Prayer is important. It is powerful. However,
God's gonna do exactly what he wants to. And you can, instead of praying it away, pray for the
blessing.
well, yeah, pray for the peace of mind to get through whatever you're going through. Like pray that God would fill you with his presence and his, you know, like his undeserving
Undeserved. Yeah.
undeserved presence and love and, but I've never been like super fan of like people praying stuff away
Well,
because
it's such a simple thing to say without really showing empathy and care.
Yeah, it
and
feels
concern.
so dismissive.
Like, can we all just agree to just stop saying that? Because it's
seriously.
it's such a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh, just pray. Oh, you're suffering right now. Just pray it away. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
And then to leave that person there in their suffering
Yes,
and not meet
yes.
them where they're at. There's nothing like helpful in that.
Mhm.
That all
Yeah.
you're doing at that point is caring about your own time and energy, that you're not giving anything like that away to
Exactly.
somebody else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that like that response is all about them,
It's so self-centered.
and not about the person on the other side at
Yeah.
all.
And honestly, that's like a lot of my qualms with, this is going to be such a disorganized episode, but I love it.
Mhm.
A lot of my qualms with a lot of this stuff is that there's no depth to it.
Yeah.
Like it's you're either perfect or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not perfect, we don't have anything to say to you. Like there's nothing we can do to help.
My pastor of our church that we go to, he did the most beautiful sermon on the concept of like how you respond to people in that, that are in grief or just hardships and stuff like that. And he literally said in the sermon, where he drew some sort of example that was like what you had just talked about, where it's like, that this is a cop-out response that you would give them. And he literally just goes, come on, guys. Like,
Yeah.
come on. That's just, that is
do
the
better.
least helpful thing, But it was just, I've never heard a pastor just be like, come on, guys, we can do so much better and we know better. And this is so unwise,
Show me one part of the whole Bible in Jesus' life where he meets somebody who's suffering and all he says is, oh, just pray about it.
Yeah. Ask me to take it away from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
No, I don't know. The woman who was bleeding constantly, she touched him and it was gone. So
Yeah.
she didn't have to beg for it.
Yeah,
Well, the
She
other-
was begging for it, but
the other
yeah.
thing to keep in mind is God is completely able to take that away. He does
Yeah.
miracles, but everything's like
But maybe he gave you those feelings,
well, what is so detrimental with that whole attitude is that if you're not praying hard enough and if it has not gone away, you're not a good enough believer. You're
Right.
not praying hard enough. You're not believing hard enough. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what God can and can't do or what he's planning or what he has in store or,
Yeah.
where he's at in the mix of it. It's all about you and your faithfulness in the situation, that if it's not going away, you're not praying hard enough, you're not believing hard enough, that it's
Mhm.
like, it's so,
And that's just not true. That's
Yeah.
not the way.
it just makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Because I've known so many people who have been so hurt by the church because somebody's done this to them.
Mhm.
And it's not like there's nothing in the Bible that holds it up. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the Bible that holds it up. It talks
Yeah.
about the power of prayer and everything, but like that's all human
Yeah.
and it's gross.
Yeah. I know.
It icks me up.
It is so shallow, like you were talking about.
It is. A lot of this is. It's just like, I mean, there's
So
a lot
surface level. Yeah.
there's a lot of points to be made within a lot of the things that, these topics. There are points to be made. There is truth. There is biblical truth to be found in some of these things, but the way a lot of the conversations happen and how they're navigated and taught, it's like it circumvents all the important truth. Did y'all ever have anybody talk to you about missionary dating?
Missionary dating.
I went to a church.
It's like dating someone who's a non-believer to get them to
Oh,
believe.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, God.
I had a church that I went to early high school that did like a whole series on it. Where
Like for it?
against it.
Against it. Okay, good.
Yeah. Like don't missionary date.
Okay.
Like don't date with the intention of changing somebody, which is a good point to be made. However, it was framed very much in the idea of like, girls, don't date the bad guy hoping that he'll come to Jesus.
Change. Yeah.
It was never like, hey guys, don't do this. It was always, girls, don't do this.
Mhm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the guy's supposed to be the leader.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't be unevenly yoked with someone who, it just goes back to like, you can't change people, and
Yeah.
like God's gonna do exactly what he wants to. He literally knows his children.
Mm-hmm.
He knows every one of
Mhm.
his children, and he's gonna call them whenever he wants to and however he wants to.
Yeah.
It may be through someone he's equipped to do that, but we were taught and preached to
Which,
not.
again, there's a good lesson in there. Like, don't date somebody that you don't actually genuinely have feelings
Right.
for.
It's just like what we talked about in our internet advice episode.
Yeah.
It's like, don't date to change people.
Yeah.
No matter
You
what
can't.
it is. Yeah.
You can't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially whenever it's that deep-seated. Like, you literally cannot change somebody's soul. But,
Right.
yeah, that was something that was, like, really hammered on for me in youth group growing up was
Mhm.
girls don't date the bad guy, hoping that, don't date the bad guy, missionary date him and bring him to church and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Like, that's bad. That's sinful, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Mhm.
there's truth to that, but there's so much more that you could talk about in that you can't change people. Don't settle. There's so much more wisdom that can be taught alongside that lesson versus what we were actually given.
Mhm.
Mm.
Purity rings, purity pledges, like, it was talked about so much, saving yourself from marriage and,
Yep.
really hailing that as being the ultimate sin.
Yeah.
And like, you can't go back from it. Like,
yeah.
gosh, all the different analogies that were used to discuss what happens to a woman when she's had sex, and then
Oh,
she gets
God.
passed on to the next one, and it's like she's a dirty shirt or whatever. Like, the
Yeah.
analogies would be that she's no longer clean and pure. No
Mhm.
man actually wants that. What is it?
She
It's the
would-
petal and the flower.
Yes,
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 that
that's
was
what I
the
was just gonna
analogy.
say.
So, do you know who Matt Chandler is?
Oh yes.
Okay. In a bad way?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. But Matt Chandler tells this story about how I think he was either in his teens or in his 20s or something. And he invited a girl to church because he wanted to bring her to church. He wasn't trying to like date her or anything like that. Wasn't missionary dating.
Good, 'cause that's bad.
Yes. He just like had a heart for this girl and he wanted to bring her to church. And he the pastor freaking did one of those sermons and he passed around a rose around the whole crowd. And then whenever it gets back to the pastor, he's like, now who would want this? Who would want this rose? And then Matt Chandler was like, it took everything in me to not scream, Jesus wants the rose.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, like, you're totally missing the point,
Yep.
Mhm.
And I was like, it still gives me chills. Like, I just
I
got
know.
chills because
Yeah.
It's
that's
so true.
That's what we need in
I have
the
chills now.
Christian community
me too.
because that is so far from the point. Like, it's disgusting, you
Yeah.
know? And not only is it misogynistic, incredibly demeaning for women and putting all of the weight on them, but it's also just like
it's false.
like how many times do we have to say that Jesus hung out with prostitutes?
Mhm.
Like, how many
Lepers.
times? Yeah, lepers, prostitutes, like
Outcasts of society.
people who literally like tax collectors, and we're gonna go and preach freaking sermons like that. I think so disgusting. It makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's largely what we grew up with. It was this
Yeah.
idea that like the more you give this precious gift that you've been
Yes.
bestowed with, because for a woman it's a precious gift. For men, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I never learned what it is for men.
I
What's
don't
the male
know.
equivalent? I
Right.
don't know.
No.
But for us, it's this precious gift that you have to give to like this. You have to protect it with everything you have.
Yeah.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Yeah.
And because it's precious. That was all for you. But yeah, protect it and keep it safe and give it to the right person who deserves it.
Who deserves it?
Who deserves it? That's what I want to know. Like, who deserves it? Because you're never taught that. It's just whoever you marry gets it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's so frustrating. And yeah, the rose thing is just,
I've been to 2 of those personally in my life where they passed around the roads.
It feels
And it was to men, not women. Men would pass the roads, not women.
no. Because
men would
do you
pass the
want
roads
this?
and take
Yes.
the pedal off.
Yeah.
Yes, because
They're the ones
They're
that,
the ones
they're the
taking
ones
it.
that are
Yeah.
taking it. Yeah. And rather than a sermon about like, men, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
It's like, women, don't sleep with all these guys. And it's like, I think it's over sexualizing young girls to just women in general, in the sense that I think that it is like a sexual
perversion.
appeal
Yeah.
in that men can have, a lot of gross men have, where like they like the idea of a girl being
Pure.
Mm-hmm. And so those messages have come out of this place, whether they realize it or not, of like men wanting women to be pure because it's like more gratifying for them.
Yeah, because then it's full ownership.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah.
Whenever they have
yeah.
somebody who is
Yeah.
pure and they're the first one to be with them and to have them, it's full ownership.
Well,
no other man
and-
has deigned to touch her at
And
that point.
outside of the Christian community and like the alpha man community, if you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
a lot of men in that community speak about how like, well, a man can have sex again and again and again and nothing changes. A woman has sex again and again and again and things change. Her body changes. And down there, it changes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And
Well,
yeah.
like, anyway.
I know, but like that's another level that I'm talking about, where it feels like this gross over sexualization
Mhm.
because they want them to, they just like the idea of like this clean, perfect, pure woman, or
As close
which
to
is so
as close to girlhood as you can get.
and oh wow, yeah. And then also that everything's like pristine and never used down there, you know. It's just like, it feels like it's all just for a male's sexual satisfaction.
It is. That's all it is. That's all it is. Now there is
not
something
actually like we're trying to protect women.
And here's the thing to kind of tie it all together is that we believe in the sanctity of sex between a man and a woman who are married to one another, who have made this commitment to one another, and there's importance in that, of course. It is not taught, again, it's like it's oversimplified. It is not taught in a way that it's like the reason why you should save it for somebody who is somebody that you've fully committed your entire life to, who has fully committed their entire life to you, is because that's a safe space to be. You can have the conversations you need to have. You can obviously I don't know, experiment, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's such a safe place to be. And in that moment, ideally, you're getting to a point where you're not engaging in these activities for your own gratification. You're not doing it entirely for yourself. You're doing it for the other person. And there's something different about that versus one night stands where you're doing it because you have a need that you want to fulfill.
Yeah. I don't think I can ever get on board with humans just acting like animals, you know, and just like throwing themselves at each other.
If that's how you want to live, go for it. I don't think I would ever be satisfied in that.
Yeah.
And I think it's foolish to think that you can be
yes.
in the same way that you would in a monogamous relationship.
I think that there is, though, in the Christian community, they use that as like a weapon to say that like sex is not about you at all. It's only about your partner.
Yeah.
And that has also paved the way for some really gross things to happen within that, where you don't ask for the things that you like and you want because it's not about me. It's only about my partner. And it should be like a giving to your partner from both directions, but you can also, it's also supposed to be enjoyed. So like you can talk about what you do and don't like, and you're not making it about yourself whenever you do that.
And what you're comfortable with and not comfortable with.
Exactly.
That's really important too.
Yeah.
Well, and a big part of all of this too is just talking about how it's like a radical purity culture. It's like you don't even talk about sex other than the fact that you're not supposed to have it until you're married.
Yeah.
I have known so many people who get married and they're like, now what? Like,
Mhm.
I guess it's okay now, but what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, how are we supposed to engage in this healthfully? And
Yeah.
what does this even look like?
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's not just,
Where am I supposed to put this guilt?
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're supposed to go from like your entire existence believing that having
It's
sex is
bad and
literally
wrong.
the worst thing that you could do. And then all in one night, that's supposed to change on your
Mhm.
wedding night.
Yeah.
Like,
But there's no conversation prior to all of that about what that looks like. So I was at like this conference once whenever I was in college, and I'm pretty sure I've already told y'all this story, but I'm going to repeat it because it just really sticks with me. But there was a younger man. I mean, I think he was probably late 20s, early 30s, and he was talking about sex and about how he had sex before he was married, and like how it did all these things to him, made him feel, like he enjoyed it at the time, but he didn't really care about the women, blah, blah, blah. But then he gets married and oh my gosh, sex is so much better with his wife. Like he spends a good like 10 minutes talking about sex
Yeah,
with her
I've
is the
heard that.
bomb, like
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And like it gets to a gross point. I'm like, I get the
Yeah.
underlying point of what you're trying to make is that there is a difference between sex with somebody prior to, especially depending on what your intentions are. But that's like your own experience. And then also like you're trying to say that, oh, it gets better whenever you're married because there's
You
just
feel
so
more
many
safe.
different things
Yeah.
with being in a marriage relationship. Which is the whole point of why it's so important to like keep it there. But because I really think that it's a protection thing. It protects both parties whenever you
Yeah.
wait until it's in that relationship. But he was up there like objectifying his wife, like acting like it was so like
you
God,
should.
it was so much better.
Yeah.
And like bragging about it. I'm like, this is gross. This
Yeah,
is gross.
I've known pastors. I've been at a church where youth pastors were like that towards
Yep.
their wives, and I'm like,
Ugh.
that seems so uncomfortable for the wife,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's just not like
But they're also not talking about why.
right.
Like, why is it that you feel like it's better? It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, it's really bad. Like, I thought it was okay, but it's actually, after having experienced it in marriage, it's like nothing compared to what it's like in marriage. But why? Why?
But also, like, a counter to that, though, is that I do think that they should talk about why, but I also hate it when people, like, hype up, like, oh, sex inside of marriage is so good, because it's like, on your wedding night, dude, it's awkward half the time. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because you, like, whether it's within your, for wedding night or it's, whatever, it's just your first time is not like the best experience that you've ever had.
Yeah.
There's a lot to figure out,
Yeah,
And
they
so-
don't. No one teaches.
Nobody teaches
and,
that.
No
and
one
to your
teaches
point of
that.
what you were saying, in that like not only do they not talk about why, but they also don't talk about anything else around sex.
No, they don't talk about like any sort of, insecurities or how medication goes into it or like libido or anything that
Yeah.
surrounds anything that makes that difficult.
It's just
Yeah.
supposed to be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, and like
So long as you wait.
yeah.
So long
Right.
as you wait, you're going to be gifted this beautiful sex life with your
Yeah.
spouse.
I don't know if I believe that sex outside of marriage is wrong.
I know that biblically it's not
Mm-hmm.
good. However, I'm not sure that our idea of marriage nowadays
Mm-hmm.
would be parallel to what is in the Bible.
Yeah.
I think you're right about our version of marriage now is different than how it was back then. I think God ultimately knows our hearts, and He knows who we've dedicated our devotion,
Mhm.
to someone.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's nowhere in the Bible does it say you have to stand in front of a congregation and
Sign a paper.
sign a paper and
Mhm.
say your vows.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
There is definitely ceremony to it, but
Yeah.
then at the same time, like in the Bible, there's arranged marriages. And is the marital bed between two people who have had an arranged marriage the same as somebody who have like chosen to be with one another?
Well,
wouldn't consider
and
strangers, probably.
and
you know?
as gross as it is, if somebody couldn't have a child, the man would just have sex with a servant.
Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah, and they're not married.
Nope.
You know, and so this is where I have a really hard time believing
Yeah.
that back then everyone was waiting until marriage. And I know that
No.
not everyone, because there was like prostitutes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Obviously,
Yeah.
not everyone was waiting, but even those that were like strong believers, that they were not waiting until marriage.
Right.
I mean, they also had multiple wives back then, so who knows what was going on, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's why for me it's so much more important to talk about like and I touched on it, but it's like it's not just waiting until, oh, you've got a marriage certificate and this is recognized by law. No, it's like the whole point of it is that you need to find somebody who fully accepts you as you are,
Mhm.
who you fully accept as who they are. You've dedicated your life to one another and you have intentions of choosing them every day for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then most likely you're more committed if that's, you know, a common goal that you have.
Mhm.
You're more able to commit to that and wait until you do have the marriage certificate
Mhm.
and all of that if that's what you want. But the point of all of it is that there is a reason why it is something to be experienced between a man and a wife.
Mhm.
Whatever man and wife looks like at any
Yeah.
point in history. And it's because it's the safest place to do it. You're doing it with somebody who loves you wholly as you
Mhm.
are. And there's just so much more
Mhm.
that comes alongside having a relationship like that because you're intimate in so many other ways than just physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas whenever you're with a stranger or somebody that you don't really have that connection to, it's just totally different. And so conceptually to me, just on a baseline, that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And if that
Like,
were taught in high school and earlier about like that's the reason why you wait.
Yeah.
The reason why you wait is because you deserve to be in a caring, loving, safe
Mhm.
relationship like that whenever
Yeah.
you decide to engage in these activities.
Yeah.
Because it is so much more worthwhile and giving and fruitful and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would have made a world of difference for so many people
Mhm.
I grew up with versus it being something that it's like you just don't do it.
Yeah.
You just fear it.
You just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Bible says. That's what God wants. You
Guys,
just don't do it.
This is so bad, but like literally at one point, like within my youth, I've thought, wow, like losing your virginity before marriage is worse than killing somebody.
Yep. That's
Because
what
that's
purity.
how
That was
it was
my
taught.
mindset.
Yeah, that's what purity culture teaches you. Is like that is the epitome of sin. You know, it's not friggin'
Yeah.
all
Well,
of the other.
I believe that all sins are equal.
Yeah.
I don't know, like
No,
right?
That's biblical truth.
Yeah, that is. And so
Well, yes,
but we weren't taught that at all.
Right.
though.
I agree that like all sin is equal, but it like that's not how
it's
it was
hard.
treated.
It's
No.
hard. It's
Yeah.
even hard for me right now to think
Yeah.
that way
Because you're so brainwashed.
I was so brainwashed into thinking that that was the ultimate sin.
right.
And so it's hard for me even sitting here right now to think like anything else. You know?
Right. Yeah.
I would never want that for my kids.
Mhm.
I don't really want them to go have sex with everyone that they ever wanted to. Like I wouldn't want that life for them.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But you'll
I
approach
would
it
never-
totally differently.
yeah, I think I mean, for sure I'll try to approach it, in the godliest way I can and what, how I see it and look at it
Mhm.
in a loving,
Yeah.
protective way.
Yeah.
But in no way is it a fear mongering situation.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-mm.
anyway.
So
Well, and I want to say that, like, specifically with Girl Defined, like, there's this whole other radical side of this where it's like neither of them even kissed anybody before they got married.
Yeah.
And I mentioned at one point that I knew people who had done that, who had saved their first kiss for marriage, and that they're so dedicated to this idea of purity. And we have, like, fabricated this idea of what purity looks like.
Mhm.
from a physical action standpoint that like it's become completely unattainable for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you contend with that whenever you're approaching, like you come in to a church or to being a believer later on in life and you've done and experienced these things and you're hearing these ideals that, you know, if you don't wait until marriage to have your first kiss, or I waited until marriage and had my first kiss, and this is why it was such a beautiful thing to do to wait. And then you hear, you know, and I waited to have sex and blah, 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 but you've not waited for either of those things. How is that realistic for most people? Good. If that's something you wanted to do and you successfully avoided the action of it, great. I would want to know what happened in your mind.
Yeah.
Because that in your mind and your heart, because that's what matters most. But I don't know. It's like, how do you see that as being an approachable thing for people? And isn't that the point? Like to show the realism of what you experience as a Christian?
Yeah.
And to be approachable, not to be the perfect example of what it, you know, I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
I can't imagine coming into church for the first time, having done those things, and not be able to feel the grace of God. And because you're so flawed and you're so dirty, you know, like
according to the church.
How do people come back from that?
Yeah.
Only by God's grace. I mean, only.
Well, we're all there.
Yeah, I know. But like, you know,
I get what you're saying.
What I mean?
It's not taught that way. It's not taught that way.
And so.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just
hard.
It like hurts my heart so much. Like I just like sit here and just like, it's like my stomach just sinks because I just, for something that is so freaking beautiful, it is so incredibly demonized in the Christian church. And I think that if instead of building fear around it, they helped young people and to build utmost respect for it, you know, and I guess an admiration for that thing rather than just a shallow act or a fear of that thing.
Yeah.
We would just be there wouldn't be so much damage that was done. Something else that I wanted to say was that, do you know Kiss Dating Goodbye?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. That was basically like the book that launched purity culture. And that is where so many Christians got back onto the courting train, and even some of them going so far as like going back to arranged marriages and all this stuff. Do you know that he has apologized for that? And he's not even a Christian anymore, but he is like, I fully recognize the damage that has done.
Yeah.
And I get chills whenever I hear that, because like that is unheard of in the Christian community.
Yeah.
That you would acknowledge something that you did so wrong.
Yeah.
And be like, and even go as far, like he goes on other people's podcasts. I think he even has his own podcast.
Does he?
I think so.
That book sat on my shelf forever. I never read it.
And
he'll picked it up.
He will talk about, because like now he's like, if there's anything that I can do now to help spread a better message, I will, you know.
Well, and a lot of it around purity culture is that you're not preaching the love gospel, you're preaching the shame gospel. And there's nothing there. God doesn't preach shame. Like he doesn't want us to feel shame. He wants us to feel his love and his forgiveness, and that there's a way out of what we're burdened with, whatever that looks like, because I don't feel like you should allow people to dictate what you feel burdened by.
Yeah.
Human beings. I don't think you should.
That's such a powerful statement. Can we highlight that? I don't think
we should not let other human beings dictate what we are burdened by.
Yeah.
And a lot of what this is that, especially with purity culture, is that we are burdened by so many things.
Yeah.
As young girls, because that's what our experience is. I don't talk about anything outside of that, but we are burdened with so many things. We're burdened with, remaining pure for our future husbands. We're burdened with being modest so that we don't tempt our brothers in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
We're burdened with so many of these things that we don't have to carry.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think if you were to alleviate that burden at any point, that would automatically mean you'd be jumping headfirst into the cesspool of sin. Like that, I don't understand why that is such a big thing in the Christian community, that just because you're not burdened by this means that you are jumping headfirst into sin. The whole point of the gospel is to unburden us.
Yes.
That Jesus died on the
Preach,
cross.
sister.
That Jesus died on the cross to remove the burden of our sin.
So backwards.
Gosh, in the Christian church, all they're doing is heaping the burden back on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but a lot. I mean, the purity culture stuff, like, it's just heaping the shame and the burden back on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just so tied to our own sin and tied to our own burden of it, and that we have to make sure that everybody else feels the same way. And that's not even the point.
It doesn't even feel like the Christian church is like fighting for people.
Mm-mm.
You know, it feels like they're fighting, I don't know, for shame. They're fighting for control.
Yeah.
And rather than fighting for the good of individual humans.
Yeah.
And that is, why so many people don't like the Christian church. And I am totally on board with that. Yeah.
Organized religion is.
If I didn't have the church that I have, I probably would feel very I probably wouldn't even be a Christian right now, to be quite honest, because them and my husband have been the only things that have kept a good taste in my mouth whenever it comes to Christianity.
There's nothing ruining faith more than people of faith.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Like, I don't know. I'd find it hard to believe that somebody who's a believer who, grew up believing in the Bible and all that, and who took it to heart, would lose their faith because of what somebody who is not a believer has said or done. I think the vast majority of people step away from it because of what the church does. And I'm not sitting here preaching that like the church is going to be perfect, because it's not. The whole point is that we're all like not perfect. Every human on the planet is not perfect. But we preach so much, or the church falls into the trap of teaching perfection and teaching that, like, oh, whenever you're not perfect, you should feel ashamed, or you should feel burdened by your sin and all this other stuff. That it's like, everybody's not perfect. Everybody
feels shame.
Automatically feels shamed and burdened with their imperfections.
Without anybody giving them
like that. The church doesn't have to tell them that. The world's already going to tell them that they're not perfect.
Exactly. And they're just going to tell themselves, you know? Like, we are so hard on ourselves.
We are.
One more thing that I want to say on that note, because I did say, like, I don't know if I genuinely, and I'm not saying that as like I think that sex outside of marriage is fine. I'm saying I genuinely don't know. Like, I've been so brainwashed by this stuff. But I've also seen, I think what has pulled me in the other direction is I've seen marriages fall apart because they got married because they were horny. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they rushed into this way before they were ready, way before they had the experience that they needed to carry a mature adult relationship, and they rushed into it just because of the need to stay pure. Yeah. And that's what I think sinks my stomach the most, is that I feel like the damage that is done by that is far worse than somebody having sex before marriage. Like, honestly, I just want to, if I could go back, I wouldn't actually say it, but I would just want to say to them, like, just have sex, get out of your system, and that way you're not horny anymore, and you can make a clear-headed decision, because it's ridiculous the amount of pain that it has inflicted on them as individuals and their families, only because of the need to stay pure. Mm-hmm. And that is where I'm just like, I don't think I really care,
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
If somebody has sex outside of marriage, if that is other case. And obviously it's not, those are not the only options.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
What should happen is we should be taught the respect and the admiration for this very, very beautiful thing, and that we give it choosingly, you know, and not just out of a pressure to, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that is like the depth of why I feel the way that I do.
Well, and
today.
I think that there's so much wisdom in saying that you're not fully resolved on something in the Bible.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who want to jump immediately to like it being so black and white, or this is the right answer and this is the wrong answer. And that honestly, there's a lot of things that you can apply that logic to.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of wisdom in being able to say, like, I'm not fully resolved on where I stand with
Right.
this, because a lot of people are completely unwilling to admit that. Because if you're unwilling to admit that you're not resolved on something, or that you're confused about something, or that you're doubting something, then you're a bad Christian.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing it right if you don't have like a full 100% I'm solid on this
Yeah.
kind of
Which is
belief.
such a joke because there's so many gray areas. I think it's ridiculous to think that you need to have an absolute on everything.
I actually looked on Girl Define's website because I was like, okay, I'm watching their videos and stuff, but what have they actually like blogged?
Yeah.
Because I was mainly curious about their ideas on modesty. There was obviously a lot of stuff that they talked about. But I was like, okay, yes, this is wash, rinse, repeat things that we grew up with.
Yeah.
Modesty for me, I don't know, that didn't really sink in for me growing up because I'm naturally just somebody who's very, like, I just am very modest naturally because that's just how I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's kind of like what you felt you had to grow up to do. you
No,
know?
that, like, for me, that was not something that was hard for me whatsoever. I never, ever, I mean,
Oh,
yes.
I was thinking because you felt like you had to cover up because you were for
Well,
the
yeah,
creepy
safety.
men that were the safety
But even
thing.
then, like I said, I was wearing t-shirts and basketball shorts. Like,
Yeah.
I was not, that's just how I am. I have
Yeah.
to, it's been in recent years that I've wanted to be dressed more like quote unquote feminine and to wear things that are a little bit more like, I don't know, sundresses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that modesty for me was not a lesson that I felt was like really that I had to pay a lot of attention to, or that I felt really negatively toward, because I just didn't struggle with that struggle. I didn't,
Like it wasn't something that weighed on you.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
didn't feel a guilt trip over it like a
Yeah.
lot of people did, because it wasn't something that I was like, I was being bad about wearing
Right.
certain
It's
things.
like what you naturally wore was modest.
Yeah.
And so you never had to like
Yeah.
carry the burden. of that.
However, I was
Ooh.
reading an article on girldefine.com, and they were talking about how hot weather, because they're from San Antonio, about how hot weather doesn't justify wearing immodest or revealing clothing. And I was taught by Girl Define today that what qualifies as intimate body parts are chest, stomach, thighs, back, etc.
Our chest.
Stomach,
I'm assuming they just mean cleavage.
boobs, yeah.
Yeah. Our chest,
Stomach. Thighs,
thighs,
back,
back.
your whole back.
I didn't know my back was so sexual.
I know, etc.
I think they're like referring to like really low cut.
No, they're talking about
dresses.
back, just back.
No, I mean like
like the
No, they said don't wear camisoles.
they said don't wear tank tops.
Yeah. This is what we're talking about is Bermuda shorts, a camisole to hide your cleavage, and then a loose fitting top on top of your camisole to hide your back and stuff. Yeah. Which was
any man
we
that is
wore
going
that a
to
lot growing up, but that was because that was the style.
Yeah. We were modest on accident.
Modest
Any-
is hottest.
Which it is not.
Oh, by the way, waiting is sexy. Don't remember those shirts? That's a
God.
throwback. Sorry, we won't go back to that conversation, but yeah, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Any man that is going to gawk over and get sexually turned on by your back has his far worse problems.
He's gone. He's far gone.
He's far gone.
There's nothing you can do to prevent this man from sinning.
Yeah, you could. Those are the type of men that you could wear a potato sack and they're
Yep.
still gonna gawk over you.
And they're still gonna be like, ooh.
yeah. Yeah, gross.
That begs the question, how far do you go? Because like 100, 200 years ago, don't show your freaking ankle bone.
Right.
Because that's far too enticing to see your ankle bone.
Right.
Have I ever looked at anybody's ankle and been like, that is an attractive part of your body?
I want to know why lips isn't one.
Yeah, are we supposed to wear face masks?
Are we gonna
Are we
wear
supposed to wear face masks?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Is that a good thing now?
Yeah, why is this
yeah, this is the main thing we do.
What
like
about
one
eyes?
of the main things.
Yeah.
I find I feel like eye contact is far more intimate than
Yeah.
like somebody's ankle bone.
Yeah.
I'm just
I don't know why I'm hung up
confused-
about ankle bone.
I'm just
but
confused why, if kissing is the gateway drug, why we're not covering our lips.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just, where I am on this is, it's another one of those, I don't freaking know. And I don't know if I care.
I figured because you're a crop top wearing heathen.
Oh, yeah. I wear all the crop tops all the time. I love a good crop top. It's my shirt of choice. I think this is one of the few times you guys have come over and I'm not wearing a crop top.
I actually really appreciate how modestly you dressed for this episode.
for this episode. I
Yeah.
did it just for this episode.
I'm although we're wearing leggings, which is probably a bit too form fitting.
Mine are like straight up biker shorts that are like super form fitting. So I'm
Mm.
definitely not within that.
Mhm.
And your husband let you leave the house that way?
No, he was gone.
Ooh, she
You
snuck
rebel,
those
you.
biker shorts in.
You rebel, you. Your husband let you purchase those? I'm kidding.
But we're covering our backs.
I want to know why they didn't say that the vagina is sexual.
Well, because I think that goes without saying, Delana.
It wasn't on the list. I don't know.
Well,
I think I can show
think
my.
it said etc. So I think that was like the hidden
That
thing
was
without
the
actually
hint.
saying the dirty word.
Yeah, we can't. Christians can't say vagina.
Guys,
They
listen,
don't
hear me out. We're gonna wear
Not until you're married.
We're
I
gonna
don't think-
we're gonna cover like everything, but we're gonna wear chaps.
But we have to cover our butt.
You know, you have to
No.
cover your thighs.
Oh, our thighs.
Your thighs,
yeah.
your back.
Oh,
your
good.
chest,
so
your
I can
stomach.
cheek it out all day.
So chaps showing
I-
the front and the back.
I think it's safe to say that that's included in the etc. as well. But
I'm gonna say it's not. 'cause-
Yeah,
No.
it's
I guess
not
it-
clear. I'm gonna take it
that's
literally.
that's up to your
Me too.
interpretation, I guess. Yeah.
Me too. I'm
That's
gonna
funny.
take it very literally.
Wow, y'all,
Because that's what people do.
I mean, etc. could be anything.
It could be. You're
I
right.
cover my fingers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. See, there's just so many things we should be covering if we're covering our backs.
Right?
I should be covering my ears, I guess. Those are like,
We're not going there. I'm gonna stop you in that thought process. Oh my gosh. The point is that it's absolutely ridiculous. Like,
Yes.
yes, there are certain things that are considered intimate, but I don't know, your thighs and your back. Again, it's like,
But
I don't-
even like the boobs are over sexualized.
like,
Like,
I think I'm gonna
they
just
are not
cover
sexual
my...
organs. I'm sorry, boobs are not sexual organs.
No, they're not. They're literally the only thing that they're meant to do is just.
Katie's feeling herself up right now.
I actually don't know what they're just meant to do.
feed your babies.
Well, I mean that is their main purpose, but they're also obviously created for enjoyment.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I was like,
If they weren't, we'd just
There
be
are nerves
flat
there.
with like little nipples.
yeah, there are nerves there that
like
are like,
just little teats.
yeah.
Do you know that, like, scientifically, men and women, their boobs, there's nothing scientifically different, like, anatomically different. Men have milk ducts, too. Look, we're probably causing all kinds of sin right now, even just talking about this.
I know, right?
Thanks so much for hanging out with us again for this week's episode of the Womanly Podcast. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media to hang out with us in between episodes and see pieces of our conversations that we don't get to include in these episodes, plus all of our bloopery humanness. We're on Instagram at Womanly Pod and TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at Womanly Podcast. We hope to hang out with you more there. Have a super womanly week.